Hi everybody, and welcome to Jewell Family Farm. Today we're going to be making a fruit cake. Okay, so this fruit cake is fairly an old recipe. I'm not sure how old it is, but it doesn't use candied fruit in it. It uses dried fruit like raisins and white raisins and nuts and cranberries, and it doesn't really use, you can use any of the dried fruits that you want to use. You can probably add, it does call for dates, but I couldn't find any at the stores, so I'm going to substitute white raisins for that. And this uses a lot of dried fruits, so you can pick and choose what dried fruits you want, or you can add the candied fruit to it if you want to, but this recipe just calls for dried fruit. So, okay, let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is we want to chop up 3 cups of nuts. Now you can use any kind of nuts that you want. The recipe calls for brazzil nuts, walnuts, pecans, or hazelnuts. You can mix and match all of these, or you can just pick and choose which ones you want. So I couldn't find it. I couldn't find brazzil nuts, and so I'm just going to go with the basic pecans and walnuts. And so it's your choice of what you want, what type of nuts you want to put in here. But it does call for 3. Whoops, man. Alright, it does call for 3 cups of nuts, so you can mix and match that however you want. So I'm doing equal parts of 1.5 cups of chopped walnuts and 1.5 cups of chopped pecans. You just do a rough cut on them, just so they're kind of like, you know, I guess not real small, but not a whole either. You want them kind of chopped up, you know, to a good size. Alright, so I have my pecans already chopped up in here, and that's 1.5 cups of that. So I add my walnuts. So we want 3 cups of nuts. That worked out just about right. So this was 6-ounce bag of walnuts, and it was, you know, an off brand. I try to go as cheap as I can. This is kind of an expensive recipe. If you're just making it for your family, it's kind of pricey because of the nuts, and the raisins have gone up a lot too at the grocery store, I noticed. So, but if you're giving it for gifts, you know, it breaks it down into smaller loaves for gifts, then it's not so bad as far as giving a gift. Alright, so let's see. So we want to pour the nuts in the mixing bowl, and then we want to add 1 cup of, the recipe calls for 1 pound of pitted dates, coarsely chopped, but since I don't have those, we're going to go with raisins. So I'm going to do 1 cup of regular raisins, 1 cup of white raisins, just kind of break all that up. A lot of sugar in that. This recipe doesn't call for a whole lot of sugar because the fruit has so much sugar in it. Alright, and then we want 1 cup of dried cranberries. Alright, so it says combine all the nuts and all the dried fruit, and then we want to fix our flour mixture up. So we're going to set this to the side for just a minute. So in this same bowl, I'm just going to use this bowl. We want 3/4 cups of regular flour, not self-rising. 3/4 of a cup. Okay, and then we want 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. Dump that in. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Okay. 3/4 of a cup of sugar. Okay, that's all that goes in that. Let me get a whisk. We're going to just mix all this up. So that's 3/4 cups of flour, regular flour, 3/4 cups of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. All right, mix all that up. We're going to take our fruit and we're going to sprinkle this mixture over the fruit and the nuts. I'm just going to mix it up with my hands. You want to coat all these pieces because if you don't, when you make your cake, for one, the main reason they want you to mix it in with the fruit is so that all of your fruit don't sink to the bottom of your cake, because it will do that if you don't mix your fruit with a little bit of flour. That includes any, cake that you make. You should mix it with just a little bit of flour, the fruit and the nuts, so that they don't all sink to the bottom. I know that you've probably made a cake and all your fruit or all your nuts are in the bottom of your cake instead of spread out through the cake when you bake it. So that's the reason why. But yeah. All right. Then in another bowl, we're going to add eggs. So I want to crack 3 eggs. Let's set that to the side for a minute. This is a kind of a different recipe. You don't use much batter and because these eggs here are so much smaller than the large eggs, I'm just going to use 2 of them. And that will equal out to another egg. But it calls for 3 large eggs. All right. So we're just going to beat this up a little bit till it's frothy. I'm going to add in 1 teaspoon of vanilla. You can do this in a mixer if you want. Might go a little faster. I just didn't want to pull the mixer out today. So you just want it really mixed up really good. Have a little bit of froth on the top. All right, and then we're going to pour that over our dry mixture. And then we're going to mix it all up. Let me get a spoon. Okay, that was 3 eggs and a teaspoon of vanilla. And just mix all that up. This is a very dry batter. Fruit cake doesn't have a lot of cake part to it. It's mostly fruits. And all this flour and egg, all it does is hold the fruits and the nuts together as they bake. It's kind of like a binder. This is a really good recipe. I mean, I love this fruit cake. If you don't like original fruit cake with the candied fruit, you might like this one a little bit better with the dried fruit. And it's got so many nuts in it. So the nuts, it's more like a nut bread almost, but not so much bread, or cake, I should say. mix it up really good. You don't see any white stuff in there, white flour or sugar or anything. Alright, let me show you what it looks like. That's what it's going to look like. Okay? Now, the next thing is you need to line your little, if you're going to use these smaller little bread pans, let me see or not. I lined it with parchment paper. What I did was I put a little bit of grease down in there. And I lined mine, I had a large, so that's what I use, but you can use whatever kind of grease you want to use, or you can use butter. But you just put a little bit of grease in there to hold the paper down. We're going to start putting this. I'm not sure how much this makes, so I'm going to fill them up as much as I can. This is a very sticky, sweet, because of the fruit. And if you don't line your little, whatever you're going to bake it in, if you don't line it with parchment paper or wax paper or something like that, it has a tendency to stick, and it's hard to get out, because then you might have to cut around the edges, and it doesn't look as pretty if you have to do that. Of course, if you don't have any parchment paper, just make sure that you grease your pans really, really good. I think I might even put some flour in them. Dust them with flour after you grease your pans. These don't really puff up a whole lot, so whatever you put in there, that's about the size it's going to be when it comes out after it bakes. There's not a whole lot of cake, flour or cakey part to this. This is a real dense, heavy cake. I'm not sure about the time. I know you're supposed to bake it at 300. This recipe's kind of old. It doesn't really tell you how long to cook it. So we're just going to have to kind of guess at it and stick a toothpick in it and see if it comes out clean. It's the only thing I know. We're going to start off with 45 minutes, so that's what I'm going to start off with. So this makes 4 small little bread pans. It probably would make 1 regular size bread pan if you're going to make the whole cake in 1 pan, is what I'm trying to say. Like a regular size bread pan that you'd bake bread in. This looks delicious. I can't wait. This is one of my favorite things to make and eat at Christmas. I do love fruit cake. This fruit cake. I'm not a real big fan of the traditional fruit cake. Alright, and it looks pretty too. These few little pieces off there. Alright, so that's what it looks like. We're going to stick that in the oven at 300, and we're going to start off cooking it for, I'm going to say 45 minutes, but I'll let you know the exact time when it gets done. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, so here they are, fresh out of the oven. They look really good. Alright, whoops. Put one on here and cut it up. It's a very dense dessert, but look how good that looks. That looks delicious. Has a lot of nuts in it. See, there isn't much cake to it. It's mostly the fruit and the nuts. This is my all-time favorite dessert at Christmas. It's so good. And you know, there wasn't any spices in it. It's just fruit and nuts, man. A little bit of dough, a little bit of batter, just to hold it together. It's so good. I hope you try it. Makes great little Christmas gifts. I mean, who wouldn't like that? It doesn't taste like your typical fruit cake. It doesn't have that candy fruit in it. I don't like that. But a lot of people do. If you like that, you can add that in there. But I hope you tried this, and it's great Christmas gifts, like I said, and it made 4 little loaves. Now, on the recipe, it says if you're going to make a whole loaf, like the big loaves, to cook it for 1 hour and 45 minutes. But I cooked these little loaves right at 1 hour, so. And they turned out really good. Anyway, I hope you like the content that we're uploading, and I hope that the Christmas baking is something, you know, that you're having fun with. And if you would like, and I would really appreciate if you'd like and subscribe and follow our channel. And so take care, count your blessings, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.